The whisper catches in the cold stone corridors of Greenwich Palace, the smell of dead fish. This crude, brutal insult is how the shocking fate of Henry VIII's fourth wife is set in motion. It is January 1540. The wedding night is a failure. The king, furious, declares himself struck to the heart with disgust, claiming Anne of Cleves is no maid, her body foul. The insult is immediate and absolute. It hangs in the air like acrid smoke, a ghost scent that will follow her. This rumor becomes her cage. She is left in a kingdom of hostile strangers, trapped by a language she does not speak. Why this violent public reversal on a woman he had never met? And what political trap was closing around her, using the king's disgust as its lock? The marriage was a contract, but the rumor was a verdict. If you enjoy these dark histories, leave a like and subscribe and comment below where you're listening from. And now, back to the story. The move is swift. The public humiliation of the wedding night curdles into the cold reality of exile. Anne is ordered from the court. The carriage ride to Richmond Palace is silent, the faces of her attendants like smooth stone. This isn't a dungeon of iron bars, but one of suffocating quiet. The heavy gates close behind her. She is no longer queen. Richmond is a gilded prison. The tapestries hanging in the stone halls seem to swallow all sound. Her ladies-in-waiting, chosen by the king, are polite jailers. They watch her. They report her every word, every meal left uneaten. The control is absolute, enforced not by chains, but by smiles. Her German is useless, a dead tongue in a hostile land. The English she hears is a weapon. A series of coded whispers she cannot parse. She is isolated, rendered deaf and mute by policy. But she is the daughter of a duke, raised in the complex world of European power. This quiet is not a vacuum. It is a space to think. A quiet will surfaces. It is not defiance. It is calculation. She has seen what this king does to wives who fight back. The ghost of Anne Boleyn lingers in every cold draft. Anne of Cleves understands. Survival is its own form of resistance. She will watch. She will learn. She will play the game. Her observation is broken by the arrival of the king's council. They carry parchment, the scent of sealing wax, and the weight of an ultimatum. Their faces are impassive. They inform her the king seeks an annulment. The reasons are stated as fact, her alleged pre-contract to the Duke of Lorraine, a legal flaw. And then the cold, personal strike, the king's inability to consummate the marriage, driven by his physical revulsion. The rumor of the dead fish, born in the king's private chamber, is now an instrument of state. It is the legal justification for her removal. They offer her mercy. She will not face the tower. She will not face the block. She will be given great estates, vast wealth, a place of honor. She will be safe. Was a quiet life a reward, or just a different kind of execution? The price for this mercy is simple and total. She must consent. She must sign the papers agreeing the marriage was invalid, a legal fiction. She must write letters in her own hand, testifying against herself, validating the king's story of disgust. And she must renounce the title of queen, accepting the new one they have crafted for her. This is the institutional mark. She will be renamed, no longer Queen Anne, but the king's beloved sister. A title that is both a kindness and a chain, branding her as property, forever part of his collection, but never again a threat. The choice is stone cold. Agree to this ritual erasure or face the iron alternative. She had been brought over the sea to secure an alliance. Now she was just cargo to be disposed of. The test is not one of faith, but of nerve. It is July 1540. The chamber at Richmond is heavy with the July heat, the air thick and still. The delegation stands before her, parchment unfurled. The condition is laid bare, unspoken but absolute. Comply or be erased. There is no trial by fire, no public accusation. This is a quiet, bureaucratic execution of her identity. They await her response, expecting hysterics, pleading, or the fatal pride of a spurned queen. This is the moment of escalation. The soft pressure of exile has given way to the hard edge of the document. The silence in the room is a weapon, meant to deprive her of hope. Anne looks at the men. She looks at the document, the black ink stark against the cream-colored vellum. She has used her isolation not to despair, but to calculate. She understood the man she married. Henry was a creature of absolute will, and his ego was now tied to the legal fiction of his own revulsion. To deny his story was to deny him. To deny him was death. She does not give them a grand speech. She does not weep. She delivers her single cold line of surrender, or perhaps of victory. The king's will, she states, her voice calm, must be done. The council members are momentarily stunned by the lack of resistance. The machine they brought to crush her has met not rock, but water. She agrees to everything. She will sign the annulment. She will write the letters. She will accept the new title. The armor she wears is not steel, but unnerving, calculated compliance. Why? Why this elaborate, humiliating theater? The why from Act 1 is finally resolved, and it has nothing to do with her smell or her body. The reason is iron and gold, high politics. The marriage, orchestrated by Thomas Cromwell, was built to create an alliance of Protestant German princes against the Catholic Emperor Charles V. But by 1540, the political landscape had shifted. The Emperor and the King of France had made peace. The alliance was now not just useless, but dangerous. Henry needed out. The king's disgust was a lie. It was a tool, a brutal piece of personal theater to justify a necessary political divorce. Anne of Cleves was simply the collateral damage of a failed foreign policy. The rumor of the dead fish was the slander Henry needed to escape a treaty without admitting fault. But what happens when the tool refuses to break? The price of her mercy is now paid. The price is her name, her honor, and her public validation of the king's lie. She must absorb the insult. She must become the Flanders mare the court mocked her as, so that the king could remain infallible. She trades her reputation for her head. The very silence and isolation meant to shatter her became her armor. In that quiet, she separated the woman from the title. The queen was being destroyed, but Anne would survive. She would outlive the rumor. She would outlive the king's ministers. She would, in fact, outlive the king himself. Her submission was a strategic masterpiece. The king, delighted by her compliance, is suddenly generous. He gives her castles, manors, and a vast income. She becomes one of the wealthiest women in England. She has lost the battle for the crown, but won the war for her life. They thought they were testing her loyalty. They were, instead, witnessing her survival. The smoke of London is a distant smudge. Anne of Cleves is at Hever Castle, the former home of Anne Boleyn. The irony is as cold as the stone walls. This is part of her settlement. She is rich, landed, and free. She has outplayed the king's rage and survived his court. This is her rebirth. She is no longer the terrified foreigner. She speaks fluent English. She attends court, exchanges New Year's gifts with Henry. She is the king's beloved sister, a title she has weaponized. She is a permanent smiling fixture in his life, a living reminder of the queen he failed to break. In a heavy carved oak box, she keeps the documents of her new life, deeds, letters of patent, inventories of silver and tapestry, and beside them, a small object. It is the Holbein miniature, or perhaps a copy, the painted lie from Act 1. She does not burn it, she does not smash it. In a wordless rite of memory, she simply touches the cool ivory frame. This object was her accusation. Now it is her receipt. It is the proof of the price she paid and the proof of the lie she survived. She closes the lid. The lie is contained. But what was the hidden truth? Why was the dead fish slander so necessary, so specific, so personal? The political motive explains the annulment, but not the visceral cruelty. The king's ego was saved. But what happened to the man who brokered the deal? The truth is buried in the state archives. A cautious reading of diplomatic letters sent from the court reveals the true rupture. It happened at Rochester, days before the wedding. The king, impatient, disguised himself as a courtier to surprise his bride, expecting her to recognize her sovereign through the magic of romance. She did not. She was polite, confused, and offered the disguised king a simple greeting. Henry was not just disappointed. He was humiliated. The Holbein miniature had promised a goddess. The woman before him was plain. He felt he had been deceived, made a fool of in front of his own men. The hidden truth is this: the slander was never about Anne. It was about Henry. The dead fish rumor was the desperate, furious invention of a wounded ego. It was not a political calculation, but a petty, brutal revenge. He had to destroy her reputation to mask his own embarrassment. Thomas Cromwell, the man who arranged the marriage, paid the price for this humiliation. He was executed for treason just days after Anne's annulment was finalized. The king, in his fury, destroyed the architect of the match. But Anne, the supposed victim, simply endured. She had been sold a crown, but she had negotiated for a life. The ink dries. In the great chronicles of the realm, the entry for Queen Anne is a blank, a void. Her marriage is struck from the record, her brief reign reduced to a footnote of failure. The official story, the king's story, is all that remains. The rumor of the dead fish, having served its purpose, is scrubbed from court documents. It was never meant to be history. It was a tool. Once used, it was discarded, leaving only a stain. The erasure is quiet, bureaucratic. She is no longer queen. She is simply Anne, Lady of Cleves. But the whispers remain. The distant witnesses, the foreign ambassadors, write home in disbelief. The French ambassador Marillac details the entire affair in coded letters, astonished at the king's brutality and the queen's unnerving, strategic compliance. These letters are the proofs, buried for centuries in foreign archives. Speaking a truth the English court was forbidden to utter. Her own voice is gone. We have her signature on the legal documents, her careful, polite letters to her brother, the king. But her thoughts, her fear, her cold calculation, that was withheld. That was hers. Anne outlives them all. She outlives Cromwell, who went to the block for the failure. She outlives Catherine Howard, the child bride who replaced her. She outlives the king himself, dying in 1557, a wealthy, respected, and independent landowner. She is buried in Westminster Abbey, the last of Henry's wives to die. Her tomb is magnificent, carved from stone, but it does not call her queen. It is the tomb of the king's beloved sister. Her erasure is etched in marble. The shocking fate of Henry VIII's fourth wife was not the axe. It was this: the public reduction of a princess to a foul rumor, all to cover the fragile, wounded pride of a tyrant. We are left with the echo of that first morning in Greenwich, the cold sheets, the stone sweating in the gray light. But the image is reframed. The door is closed, but she is the one who holds the key. The slander is just smoke. The stone, the land, the wealth, that is what endures. Subscribe, hit the bell, and like. The lie was loud, but the survival was silent.